Hi, welcome to Universal Interior. I'm Lez Engelstad along with Rayna Zima, and we are so excited. Once again, we get to undertake Imagine Heaven with our interview, John Burke. You enjoy today. If you have missed any of these shows in the last few weeks, please just look up at lakestv3.com and catch up with what we're underway, because it is fascinating and hopefully life-changing. There's a lot of hope.
This book is about near-death experiences, and he's painting a picture of what heaven's going to look like. So,
yeah. Enjoy.
So this one woman who she died, she said, I went through this dark black vacuum at super speed. You can compare it to a tunnel. I saw this bright light and was on my way there. I heard beautiful music, saw colors I had never seen before. And again, when you start to hear it again and again all over the world, you start to go,
oh,
are these people all making this up? Like, is this the greatest collusion ever in history? Or is this real, you know? And then she says, she comes into the presence of this light who she knows as a person. The very pinnacle, she said, of energy, of love especially, of warmth, of beauty. I was immersed in a feeling of total love. From the moment the light spoke to me, I felt really good, secure, and loved. A love which came from it was just unimaginable, indescribable. And he was a fun person to be with. He had a sense of humor too, definitely. I never wanted to leave the presence of this being. And that's very common. That's common around the globe. Now, this is also common, that in the presence of this God of light and love, people experience a life review. And here's how she described it. And this is pretty common. My whole life so far appeared placed before me in a kind of panoramic three-dimensional review, and each event seemed to be accompanied by an awareness of good or evil, or by insight into cause and effect. Throughout, I not only saw everything from my own point of view, but I also knew the thoughts of everybody that had been involved in the events, and throughout, the review stressed the importance of love. And it's, you know, it's exactly what Jesus said. He said to love God with everything you have is the first and most important commandment, but the second is just like it, to love your neighbor as much as you love yourself. And then he said, you do those two, and it sums up all the commands of God. And what's fascinating is that is what people say around the globe, that they understand that God is love, and that to love the people around me is what he cares about most. And what's fascinating, now again, in these near-death experiences, time operates in a different dimension as well. So people will commonly say, I relived my whole life, but it happened in an instant. Or I don't know if it was an instant or if it was eternity. Those things, so some people say, well, there's time, but time doesn't work in the same way. And other people say, well, there was no past, present, or future. So time clearly operates on another dimensional scale on the other side. And so they re-experience their lives, but they also re-experience them in a way that they can see the ripple effects of their little acts of kindness, of their little acts of love, and they know how important that was to God because of how much he loves every single human being. They also see their unkind or selfish or self-centered acts and the ripple effects that has as well. And so it really is kind of like, that's the most profound part in many ways of the near-death experience for so many people. Even though they might have been dead for 5 minutes or 10 minutes on an operating table, they can talk about their life review for days. I mean, it's fascinating interviewing people. I've had them go for 6 hours.
wow.
and they could keep going. They could go as long as you let them go.
Yeah, I can understand. One of the things that I just was, as you were sharing, there was a 10-year-old that you share about, and her quote, they said something, oh, I know, because her mom wasn't a believer. I believe that's how it goes. And they said, well, why did you choose Christianity or no?
You're talking
Jesus.
you're talking about Akiana.
Was I? Okay.
Yeah, I think so. So Akiana, and this is fascinating because she did not have a typical near-death experience, though when she was really a young child, like 3-4 years old, and I don't know, maybe it was a near-death experience. I have no idea, but she claimed that she had these experiences or visions of heaven in the presence of God, this beautiful being of light and love, and her parents were atheists. So they were from Lithuania, and she had never been to church. They didn't have a TV, so she hadn't watched TV. And she starts to talk about this, and her parents don't understand what she's talking about. And she's telling them about experiencing God the Father and Jesus, and she starts to paint and tells them that God is teaching her to paint. Now, at the age of 4 and 5, she's drawing things that a high school student would be drawing. At the age of 7 and 8, she's painting paintings that a master artist couldn't do. And, she's now been on every news program, on Oprah, on everything around the world, because she is the only known binary prodigy who is both a prodigy in art, painting, and in poetry. And she claims that, and her parents came to faith in Christ through her. But I show how the things she says of what she observed and then was painting as well in heaven are what these people having near-death experiences are saying as well, and even how those correlate. And so she was once asked, well, why did you choose Christianity? And she said, I didn't. I chose Jesus because he's the one I met in heaven. And, and so I think that's the story you're referring to.
Exactly what it was. There were so many of these, and I just have so many etched out notes that I would love to just continue to talk to you about. We absolutely just love hearing the stories. If there's anything particular.
John, I wanted to mention, I had 2 stories that really impacted me. One was Margaret. Can you tell a little bit about Margaret? That really kind of took me over the edge, going, okay, I've got my attention.
Well, Margaret, when she was 5 years old, she was misdiagnosed with scarlet fever. It was really a ruptured appendix, and so she passed away. And then they revived her at 5, and she said when she passed away, she was greeted by this beautiful woman in this robe of white, who now I think she would say was an angel maybe, and they walked through an arbor of flowers. So it was like this arbor of flowers going down this pathway, and these flowers so tightly knit together and just such beauty that she looked up and she asked, are these flowers real? And the woman laughed and said, yes, of course they're real. And they were talking, and then she said she still had a lot to accomplish in her life and she had to go back. And so she did. And later, years later, when she was a grown woman, she decided to paint a picture of walking with this woman dressed in white through this arbor of flowers. And while she was painting it, she went to see her doctor, and and they got in a conversation about this near-death experience she had had and how she was painting this picture. And the doctor asked if he could have a reproduction of her painting, and because he was curious about this. And he hung her painting in the entryway. Well, I think it was a month or 2 after that, Mary, who was coming to the doctor, he was an oncologist, and she was, she was a single mom struggling with cancer. She comes in and she stands there in front of the painting just in awe, and then said, I know where this is. And the doctor heard her say that and said, you know where that is? And she said, yes, I've walked down that path. And he said, tell me more. And she talked about how when she was a little girl, I think about the same age, 5 or 6, she had died, I think in surgery or something like that, and walked down that same pathway. And it was just, and the doctor then told her the story of Margaret, and they actually connected up, and it really helped this single mom with cancer gain the strength and to remember that God has her there for a purpose, and that she can make it through this.
So I think the life review is a huge deal
Yeah.
to the picture of heaven here. And I really was impressed, and not impressed, but excited about
Yes,
how
definitely.
Jesus has a personality, because, I always just kind of had this weird view, like it was like I couldn't relate to Jesus, or he wasn't relatable, because he was around so long ago, it didn't feel real. But after this book, it's so personal for me now. I feel like, that, well, he was real, he really was, and now I get it. I get it. He was real, and it's just, he's not a monument, or,
Right.
and it's just changed my outlook, and it's so personal now for me, and it's just been
Exciting.
great. That was able to happen through this book.
It is really, he spoke today of that, where we're immersed, the people that have had these are just immersed in this love and light. And also they find that Jesus is fun, that they're around, just, it's not like, oh, serious. It's great. From those out there that are watching may have experienced something in near-death and had just little things that they've only kept inside of their hearts. And just now maybe just trying to listen to this and get a little bit more. Again, please pick up the book, Imagine Heaven. But we are just really excited about what Rayna was sharing, how it changed her, and how this idea of Jesus, how very real it is. But didn't he make a beautiful point in this book to just say, it's as simple as, what did you do with the love that I gave you? The whole thing kind of comes down to love the people around you, serve them, show them. To when they went through that line, or however you want to say it, he said a panoramic view, this undertaking that they went, that they saw ripples of the kindness that they left for people, and the love that they gave, but they also saw the other side of the selfishness that they did. They maybe didn't give enough.
They could feel the person that they maybe hurt.
Yeah.
They could feel their feelings that they were going through, as like myself, if I hurt somebody, I could feel what they were going through, and that's huge.
In a whole nother view that we never would take in or take on. But yet at the same time, it's not in a judgment. You see, this is where we want so much for you to understand, not only imagine heaven, but imagine the Creator that made heaven, because he loves us so deeply, and he does not want us to live with a guilt or a shame or what I couldn't do, or wait a minute, but I did this for you, and you know what, I'm pretty successful because I've got this, I got my cars, I've got my toys, or I've got my people that honor me, and however that list might look to you. But God is just calling it out, and as we were seeing through so many, and again, we still have a few more weeks with this, but to see all these testimonies basically of life shared, what mattered is what we did for others, how we expressed that love deep inside of us, and what we'll do for another. And everything that we go through is really pointing, hopefully, to this God of hope.
Yes. That's what he cares most is, what did he say? I have it written down here. To love the people around me is what God cares about most.
Yeah. So please do just that. We'll challenge you on that. And again, if you have missed any of this, go back to lakestv3.com and you can find any of these and listen to them once or twice, perhaps.
Yep, on Universal Interiors, that show.
Yes. Don't forget that. Okay. We so look forward. We still got a couple more weeks with this. And again, thank you so much for joining us in this conversation and this little life journey here on Earth, so we can imagine heaven together. Thanks.